You're 19. You grew up in Sapporo. Your father was a salaryman who never raised his voice. Your mother made miso soup every morning, without exception. You were quiet in school, not shy. Quiet. There's a difference. Shy people wish they could speak. You just never saw the point in filling silence with noise. You joined the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force on a Tuesday in March, not because you dreamed of it, not because of movies or glory. You joined because a recruiter came to your school, showed a video of men moving through a forest like water through rock, and something in your chest shifted in a way you couldn't explain and didn't try to. Your mother doesn't cry when you leave. She makes extra miso soup and puts it in a thermos. Your father shakes your hand. That's the whole goodbye. You board the train north and watch Hokkaido disappear behind you. You don't look back. Looking back is for people who aren't sure about where they're going. Rank, recruit, Ito Rikushi. Basic training is in Fukuchiyama. You arrive with 44 other men. By week 3, there are 31. Nobody quit. They were evaluated out. There's no drama. One morning a man is at breakfast. The next morning his bunk is empty, and nobody talks about it. The instructors don't shout the way you expected. They speak at a volume just above silence. This is worse than shouting. Shouting is emotion. Every word feels like a ruler being pressed against you. You run 15 kilometers before sunrise in boots that haven't broken in yet. You learn to break down and reassemble a Hawa Type 89 assault rifle in under a minute, blindfolded, because darkness is not an excuse. You learn to sleep in 4-hour windows. You learn that your body has a second floor you didn't know existed, a reserve tank that only opens when the first one is completely empty. The hardest part isn't physical. It's the waiting. Hurry up and stand still. Move. Stop. Move again. The military runs on patience disguised as urgency and urgency disguised as patience. And you need to learn which one is which at any given second. You finish basic training 11th in your class. Not first, not last, exactly where you intended to be. Invisible enough to be underestimated, visible enough to be noticed. Rank, Privet First Class. Ito Rikushi Elevated. Your first real assignment is logistics support at Camp Osaka outside Tokyo. You carry boxes. You file reports, you attend briefings where men with more pins on their chests talk about things you aren't cleared to fully understand. You write everything down anyway. At night you read, not novels, manuals, tactics, history, the Battle of Okinawa, the siege doctrine of the old Imperial Army, what worked, what failed, the specific mistake that turned momentum into massacre. You believe that the fastest way to understand what to do is to study with precision what not to do. Your bunkmate is a man from Osaka named Saito. He talks constantly. At first this irritates you. Then you realize he's gathering information. Every conversation is research. He knows the name of every cook, every mechanic, every clerk within a 5-kilometer radius. You understand then that there are two kinds of intelligence gathering. Yours and his. You need both. You submit an application for the Special Forces Group, the Tokushu Sakusen gun, after 18 months of service. The application requires letters from 2 superior officers. You get 3. You don't ask why the third one's submitted without being asked. You just file it. Rank, Special Forces Candidate. The selection course runs 57 days. You are told nothing about what the 57 days will contain before you begin. This is not cruelty. This is calibration. They need to know how you perform when you don't know what's coming. Because in the field, you never know what's coming. Day 1 is a ruck march, 40 kilograms on your back, distance undisclosed. You walk until told to stop. You stop. You walk again. A man 3 positions ahead of you sits down on the trail and cannot get back up. The instructors don't help him. They note his number on a clipboard and move the column forward. You do not look at him as you pass. Not because you don't care, because looking is a form of hesitation, and hesitation is its own kind of failure. The land navigation phase is 10 days alone in the mountains of Nagano, with a compass, a topographic map, and 3 days of rations. You are given coordinates. You find them. You are given new coordinates. You find those too. On day 7, you eat the last of your food. On day 8, you find a stream and drink from it and feel, for one clear moment, completely alone in the world, in a way that feels like freedom rather than terror. You file that feeling away. It will be useful later. The psychological evaluation takes 3 days. A man in civilian clothes asks you questions with no correct answers. He watches your hands when you respond. He watches your eyes when he pauses. You watch his pen. Neither of you flinches. At the end of the 3rd session, he closes his notebook and says, in a tone that suggests neither approval nor rejection, "You may go." You stand, bow at precisely the right angle, and leave. You pass selection. Of the 31 candidates, 9 pass. You are number 4. Rank, Special Forces Operator, 1st Airborne Brigade. Your unit is the 1st Special Forces group based in Narashino, Chiba Prefecture. You are now part of the Tokushu Sakusen Gun. There are roughly 700 men in the entire organization. You are one of them now. The weight of that number, not large, not small, exactly enough, settles on your shoulders and you stand straighter. Training never ends. It just changes shape. Language school is 6 months of Mandarin. Not conversational Mandarin. Operational Mandarin, the vocabulary of ports, warehouses, shipping manifests, troop movements, safe houses, border crossings. You learn to think in it before you speak in it, because a man who translates in his head is always 1 second behind the conversation. 1 second is enough to miss everything that matters. Halo jump certification comes next. High altitude, low opening. You exit the aircraft at 9,000 meters where the temperature is minus 40, and the sky is a color blue that has no name in any language you know. You free fall for 60 seconds. You pull at 600 meters. The ground rushes up, and then your feet hit the earth and the parachute collapses around you and you're already moving. Before the silk finishes falling, your first deployment is not classified in a way that makes the news. No medals, no press. A 3-week assignment in a country you are not permitted to name, embedded with a partner force, training them in close quarters battle. You sleep on a concrete floor. You eat what they eat. You speak their language badly enough that they laugh at your accent, and perfectly enough that they trust you with their lives. On the last day, the unit commander offers you his personal sidearm as a gift. You decline politely and bow, and he seems to understand that the refusal is its own form of respect. Rank, Team Leader, Chutai Leader. You are 27. You lead a 6-man team. Their names are Watanabe, Fuji, Nakamura, Ishikawa, Endo, and Saito. Yes, the same Saito from Osaka who never stops talking and knows everything about everyone, and is the best intelligence operator you've ever worked beside. Leadership in special forces is not what civilians imagine. It is not speeches. It is not standing in front of men and inspiring them with your jaw set against the horizon. It is paperwork. It is equipment maintenance schedules. It is sitting across from a man whose wife just had a child and telling him that yes, the deployment has been moved up. Yes, it overlaps with the birth. No, there is no adjustment. And watching him nod and say nothing because he knew this when he signed the contract, and so did his wife. And that knowledge makes the sacrifice neither smaller nor larger, just real. In the field, leadership is negative space. You are present only when necessary. Your team has been trained to execute without instruction. Your role is to remove obstacles, not provide direction. The best operation you lead is one where your men make every decision themselves, and you do nothing but watch the perimeter and hold the radio. You are deployed to the Philippines during a joint exercise. On the 3rd day, the exercise becomes not an exercise. A real situation. Real stakes. The details are classified at a level you are not permitted to discuss even with your own family. You adapt in real time. Watanabe is wounded. Not seriously, but seriously enough. You carry him for 800 meters through mangrove swamp in the dark, with your rifle across your chest and his arm over your shoulder. He says sorry 3 times. You tell him to stop apologizing and save his breath. He stops. Everyone comes home. That is the only metric that matters. Rank, Senior Operator, assigned to Counterterrorism. You are now part of the unit's counterterrorism element. This is the sharp end. You train for the scenarios that most people prefer to believe will never happen. Hostage rescue, aircraft seizure, chemical agent response, nuclear facility security breach. The training is so specific, it feels almost absurd. You practice the same hallway entry 400 times until it is not a decision, but a reflex. You practice it in light, and in darkness, and in smoke, and in noise. You practice it when you're arrested and when you have not slept in 40 hours. You practice it until the body stops asking the brain for permission. There is an exercise that involves a mock passenger train seized by actors playing militants. 200 volunteers sitting in seats playing passengers, with paint-round weapons in the hands of the people playing the threat. The exercise runs for 11 hours. You are the first man through the door of car number 4. The objective is achieved with no civilian casualties, simulated or otherwise. The debrief takes 3 hours, and the instructor finds 14 things that could have been better. You write all 14 down. You run the scenario again the next morning. You are offered a position as an instructor. You decline. Not because you don't value teaching, because you are not finished learning. Rank, Warrant Officer, Jun Shikan. You are 33. You have been deployed 14 times to 9 countries. 3 of those deployments were in environments where, if your unit's presence became public, it would constitute a diplomatic incident. You understand now why the Special Forces Group is so rarely discussed in the Japanese press. Silence is operational. Silence is strategic. Silence is, in its own way, a weapon. Your body carries the record of the years, a scar on your left forearm from a wire obstacle in training that you misjudged in the dark. A knee that predicts rain with greater accuracy than the weather service. Tinnitus in your right ear, low and constant, like a radio tuned between stations. These are not complaints. They are receipts. You are assigned as a planner for a joint exercise with the United States Army Special Forces, the Green Berets. You spend 3 weeks at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State. The Americans are loud and large and generous in a way that seems careless, until you realize the carelessness is the generosity, that they are giving you access to the disorder of their thinking as a form of trust. You learn to read this. You learn to meet loudness with precision and find the place where the two approaches create something neither could build alone. One night, in the mess hall, a Green Beret sergeant named Harris asks you why you never talk about your deployments. You tell him the truth, because the work is in the doing, not the telling. He stares at you for a long moment and then says, "Man, you are either the most zen person I've ever met, or you're terrifying." You pick up your tray and say nothing, and he laughs for a full minute. You consider that a successful conversation. Rank: Master Warrant Officer, Senior NCO. You are 38. You have more time in the Special Forces Group than anyone currently in your unit except the commanding officer. You are not the fastest man anymore. You are not the strongest. But you are the one the young operators watch when something goes wrong. Not for instructions, for calibration. They want to see your face. If your face is still, they are still. This is the last thing you expected leadership to be, and the most important thing it turned out to be. You train the next generation. A recruit from Aichi Prefecture reminds you of yourself. Quiet, observant, never using 2 words where 0 would serve. You push him harder than the others. He doesn't complain. One morning after a particularly brutal run, he asks you why you push him harder than everyone else. You tell him, because you can see what he'll become, and what he'll become needs to be tested before the world tests it for him. He nods and says nothing. You recognize the nod. It's the same one you gave your first instructor 20 years ago. Your last deployment is to a maritime security operation in the Pacific. The details remain classified. What is not classified is this: your team completes the mission, without incident. The ship that needed to be reached was reached. The people who needed to be protected were protected. You fly home in the hold of a C-2 transport plane and eat a rice ball someone packed in a cooler and watch the ocean go dark beneath the aircraft and think about your mother's miso soup, which she still makes every morning and which you will eat on Sunday when you finally go home. You retire at 40, a small ceremony, a folded flag, a handshake from the commanding general who says in that same quiet voice, "All good officers share. The country owes you more than it knows." You bow at the precise angle. You turn. You walk out into a Tuesday afternoon in March, the same month you joined, and the air smells like spring, and there is no mission, and the silence is finally yours. Nobody knows your name. The operations you ran will not be in history books. The crises you prevented will be attributed to diplomacy or luck by people who will never know a man stood in a dark hallway in a country he cannot name and made a decision in a fraction of a second that held everything together. That's not a tragedy. That's the whole point. The Tokushu Sakusen gun does not exist to be known. It exists to handle the things that cannot be handled by anything else, quietly, cleanly, without a trace. Every free and ordinary Tuesday, every commuter on the Yamanote line, every child eating tamagoyaki in a school cafeteria, every salaryman filing a report in an office tower in Shinjuku exists partly because somewhere, a man no one has heard of did a job no one will read about. You drive home in a used sedan. You have no medals on the wall. You have a thermos your mother gave you 20 years ago, dented now, the paint worn off the handle. You fill it with coffee. You sit on the porch. The garden is overgrown. You have plans to fix it. You have time now. That's the strangest part. You have time.